Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's Brandon, and welcome back to Marotta Media. This review, I will be going over a movie that I am very surprised to see just how polarizing the reactions have been. 28 Years Later. 28 Years Later is the third film in, I guess you could say, a trilogy, because the second movie, 28 Weeks Later, has kind of been retconned, but I digress. But this movie, as the title suggests, obviously, takes place 28 years later after the events of the original film, 28 Days Later. And in 28 Years Later, there is a community on a secluded island in the UK, and they have learned to live amongst the rage virus until one day a father named Jamie takes his son Spike out for an initiation of sorts. And after they embark on this journey, Spike sets out into the mainland by himself in order to achieve a seemingly impossible task. And along the way, he learns a lot about himself, the world, and the mainland, and just life as a whole. Now, I'm going to be honest, I was not 100% familiar with this franchise. I always knew what they were, but if I'm telling the truth, I hadn't even seen these movies until recently. And by recently, I mean the same day that I watched 28 Years Later. I watched all three movies on the same day. But a big reason why I didn't watch either of these movies, well, besides being too young, is that up until recently, 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later were not available to stream anywhere, and you could not buy them physically. But thankfully, they're both available digitally now, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. Just know the whole situation was ridiculous, but yeah, that's something for another video. But to sum up my feelings on both films, I thought 28 Days Later was great, even though I absolutely hate the way it looks. And 28 Weeks Later was decent. It had some good parts to it, but overall I wasn't really a fan because it didn't expand on a lot. But I was truly excited for 28 Years Later, and a big reason for that is that I thought this movie had one of the best, if not the best, trailers of any movie this year. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie going back to like November, December of 2024, and every time I saw it, I got so hyped. I'm like, that is going to be one of the best movies of 2025, no doubt. But I'm so sad to report that I am in the minority here, because this movie is being universally praised, it seems, but I was so disappointed with it. And the problem with 28 Years Later is that this movie just feels like so many different movies all bunched together to make one film, and it's so messy. And it's especially disappointing because I absolutely loved the way 28 Years Later started. As I said, we follow a father and son duo, Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Spike, played by Alfie Williams. And the two of them go out into the mainland because Spike is going through an initiation that everyone in his village needs to go through when they come of age. And Jamie shows him all these different types of infected, but I'll expand more on them a little bit later. And he just shows him how to survive and how to kill one of the infected if he's ever in danger. But something about this entire sequence is that Spike is very clearly hesitant to kill one of the infected because he just doesn't have that kind of grit in him. He's not a killer, and he's having a difficult time learning how to be, even though it's pretty vital if you want to survive in this world. But also, this sequence introduces us to some of the weirdest editing choices that I've seen in a movie in the last year. Because if you've seen the trailer for 28 Years Later, they recite that poem Boots over and over again all throughout, and it's so well done. You know, the one that's like 7, 6, 11, 5... 9 and 20 mile today, 4, 11, 17:32 the day before. Boots, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. I probably didn't need to recite that whole thing, but it's honestly kind of catchy, and it's been stuck in my head since I watched the movie. But that poem just keeps going throughout the entire beginning of Jamie and Spike's journey, and we're also shown stock footage of what looks like soldiers and kids shooting arrows in one of the wars. I'm not sure which one, someone can tell me probably. But we see all of this stock footage, Boots is playing in the background, and every time during this sequence we see an infected get shot in the head by Spike or Jamie, the camera does this weird 180 technique where you see the arrow go through their head and it freeze frames and then it just goes to the other side of them. If you've ever played the video game Sniper Elite, it really reminded me of that. Every time you shoot someone in the head in that game, it slows down and shows you like a full 360 view of the kill. And I get what they were going for. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a pretty cool thing to do. But it quickly lost its appeal when they did it 6 times in the matter of minutes. I was like, okay, we get it. It just felt like Danny Boyle wanting to show off a new toy that he got. But anyway, I really liked the start to this movie. I liked this father-son dynamic between Jamie and Spike, and I thought, okay, if the entire movie is like this, then it's gonna be really good. But after this movie pivots completely. It instead pivots to a storyline involving Spike and his mother Isla, played by Jodie Comer. And Isla is terminally ill, but the village that they live in doesn't have a doctor, so nobody can definitively say what's wrong with her. But while Spike was on this initiation with his dad, he notices a fire in the distance. And Jamie tells Spike that the fire was probably started by a man who was a doctor before the world went to hell. So once they get back to the village, Jamie takes his terminally ill mother out into the mainland by himself. And this whole part of the movie just didn't work for me at all, because, as I said, Spike was very hesitant to kill even the infected on his initiation mission. And after being out on the mainland with his dad for what felt like maybe, 12 hours, he has the courage to go out there by himself with his mother who is dying. So this little kid is expected to take care of this grown woman who has a very clear medical condition. I just did not buy that at all. And it doesn't help that this entire sequence was also just full of absurd moments. Particularly one moment that happens on a train. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that entire sequence, I was like, what the hell is this? What am I watching here? And this whole part of the movie tries its damnedest to be as emotional as possible and tries to get the audience to cry, but I did not feel any ounce of emotion. None of the emotional moments really landed for me, and it's because I just did not really find myself caring about any of these characters. And remember earlier when I told you that Jamie was showing Spike all of the different kinds of infected? Yeah, that's another big problem with this movie. Because we're shown all these different kinds of infected that we have now, but none of them are ever explained how they came to be or anything. Because the big ones that you've probably heard about are called alphas. And alphas are these huge hulking men that are butt naked and have their package just out in the open for everyone to stare at. But I will say those things have been the subject of some absolutely hysterical memes that I've seen on TikTok. They make me laugh so hard. But we have alphas, but it's not really explained why the alphas are so invincible and basically indestructible and unkillable. But you also see ones like these fat ones that just crawl everywhere because I guess they don't really have the ability to walk. And I was like, okay, how did those things come to be? They just crawl everywhere and they survive like that? Because you would think if they're so slow, how would they catch anything and eat it unless they stumbled upon like an already dead body or something like that? How did they eat so much to the point where they got fat? Or were they fat before they got infected? I just didn't understand it. I would have liked to have known more about these different kinds of infected because it felt like it was trying to be like The Last of Us or even Left 4 Dead when it came to showing us all these different kinds of infected, but not really explaining them. And I know, 28 Days Later probably inspired the two of those things. Hell, they very well might have, but it just felt like even the inspiration was trying to copy the very things that it inspired. But the last few minutes of 28 Years Later are really what cemented my feelings for this movie, and that was, it's bad. The last 4 to 5 minutes of 28 Years Later contains one of the most absurd endings that I've ever seen in a film. Seriously, the ending to this movie does not match the tone that this entire franchise has maintained throughout 3 movies. It felt like I was watching a completely different movie. It came out of absolutely nowhere, and it was so jarring. And honestly, I don't think I would have had a problem with where the movie decided to end if the entire movie was like that. But as I said, the entire movie up until that point was so self-serious, and then the last few minutes get so absurd that it just felt like the tones were at odds with one another. Not to say that there's nothing good about 28 Years Later, because I do think the acting all around is fantastic. I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson was stupendous in this, and I don't think he's a great actor, but he did do a really good job here. Jodie Comer is great, as she typically is. Ralph Fiennes is also in this movie, and I thought he was excellent. But the star of the show is absolutely Alfie Williams, who portrays Spike. This kid is so young, but if he keeps this up, he has such a bright future ahead of him, and I'm rooting for him. The cinematography is gorgeous. There's some absolutely breathtaking shots all throughout. And as I said, I loved the way the movie began, but it just decided not to stick with that for some reason, because I think it would have been a much better movie if it did. I just found this to be a huge disappointment, and I'm sad about that because I was excited for this movie. I wanted to love it. I truly thought that this was going to be one of the best movies of 2025. But instead, to me, it's one of the most disappointing movies of 2025. And overall, I would give 28 Years Later a 4 out of 10. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching my review of 28 Years Later. If you guys saw this movie, let me know what you thought about it. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Because it seems like I'm in the minority here. If you guys like this review, be sure to hit that thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe. If you want to see my previous reviews, I will link those right over here. Other than that, I hope you all have a tremendous rest of your day. I will see you all next time.